Right folks, so what we're going to do now is a little bit of coffee tasting. So I'm going to give you all one of these in just a moment. But the first thing I'll do is just kind of talk through that last exercise. What did you guys find using different dose weights? What changed when you use a high dose versus a lower dose?
The way cord came out, yeah, it was too less, so it just came out really quick.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So the less coffee you use, the faster the shot, vice versa. So you notice pretty slow shots and used a lot. And what visually, like, what's the difference between those two? How do you identify fast versus slow?
Very light straight away.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and fast.
Yep. So you can see it's just two straight
Yeah,
streams.
yeah.
It's much lighter in colour, much faster.
Yeah.
Probably gets watery a bit
Yes.
faster as well. Cool. No worries. And the slow shots, what do they look like? What is the difference there?
Dark, very slow coming out.
Yeah, cool.
Sometimes dripping and then starting to pour. Yeah.
Well, this is good. So you guys can really visually identify when something's fast or slow. That's great. So the next part of this, and where a little bit more detail comes in, is figuring out where to stop the shot based on how it's going to taste. So what we might actually do is divide it up into different parts. So just once around here. From this point on, what I want everyone to be doing is achieving that target of 21 grams or pretty close to it. So I want you to be within 0.2 of a gram either way while we're doing this next part of testing. So still try to achieve that 21 gram dose, and then either add or remove some coffee to get it down to 0.2 away. So this is 21.5. What I'm going to do with this is, after my distribution, that little bit of extra that's left on top, instead of putting it in, I'm just going to sweep that off. See how we go. Beautiful. So now 21. Alright, so this is going to be perfect for us to eliminate dose as something that could affect the extraction rate. Because that's what we've noticed, right? Changing the dose changes the speed. So this is a good way of standardising that. And also a little bit later, when we program these grinders, that's how we're going to remove dosage as a variable and keep that the same all the time. Right, so going through these next steps, we'll keep tamping the same. So remember, we line up the angle, we apply pressure, and it's a fair bit of pressure. We don't want to do a soft tamp, it's like fairly firm, especially with these lower doses. Yeah. A little twist. Yeah, the twist's okay. It's not going to have a huge effect on quality if you do it or if you don't. But if you've got a lot of loose particles, reintegrating them in can stop it. So this is piling up here. But it's not a huge deal, one way or another. Alright, so locking this up here now, what I'm going to do is divide this up into different parts. So I want you guys to tell me when you see changes. Now you've noticed, obviously, it starts like we're used to seeing it, dark and drippy. Yeah, right about there. So it's looking a little bit light. That's about now, absolutely. Yeah, as well. So this one's running fairly quick. So what were those changes? What were you guys noticing? Why were we switching the cup over just then?
Lighter as the shots go longer.
Yep.
Start off more darker as it lightens off a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So we noticed a colour change from here to here. Absolutely. What about from here to here? What was the change? Yeah, maybe both of those things. It looks like it's pouring faster.
Yeah. And
it also starts to thin out a little bit right about there. And then over at this part here, it lost its texture completely. So yeah, good spot there. Now what we want to do is understand how different flavours are impacting cup quality and where they come out in those different stages. So what I might get you guys to do is grab a seat just around, starting on this side all the way around. And I'll bring these over and we'll have a taste together. These around as well. If you can grab one of those, pass it on. So that big cup there is you guys just spit the coffee out, because not all of it's going to taste amazing. But also this is going to stop you from getting too high off caffeine. Okay, let's grab one of those. You can't drink coffee? Okay, we'll simulate the drinking experience for you. That's okay. Alright guys, so what you've got in front of you there, that's your rinse, your tasting spirit and your spittoon. And what I'd like you to do, is for yourself, as I pass this around, is just have a little slurp. So grab a little bit of the liquid on your spoon. And when we taste coffee, I don't know if you guys have been to a cupping before, but what we do is slurp it right back. So there you go. Do that frequently. And now spit the liquid out. Okay, so too much drinking is going to affect your tasting ability, but really today, this is, like I said, to stop you from drinking too much coffee. So I want you to taste that, spit it, and then pass it on to the next person.
So you don't actually swallow any of it, you just...
Yeah, we're not going to swallow it. Oh, you can if you want.
Slip it back and spit it out, okay.
So maybe with this first cup, it's not advisable.
Is that enough to have?
Yeah, perfect. And I'm just going to come through here.
So is it once you've spat it out, that taste that you're looking for, after you've spat it out or before you've spat it out?
So it's a little bit of both. We're going to talk about what you're getting up front, and then we're also going to talk about how it's sitting on your palate after tasting.
Okay.
So guys, something else I'm going to do is map out everything that we're talking about. So I'm just going to draw some notes up on the whiteboard for us.
Was that the first part of the coffee?
That's the last part.
The last one.
Yeah.
So, okay, start the last. Good. Okay.
That's right. And what do we think of that? How would you describe that? Just the one cup.
Yeah. No real strong coffee. No coffee flavour, really.
Not strong?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so we'd say that this didn't have much body to it.
No.
So there was no depth of flavour. It was really thin. It was really watery. So if we were going to give this a level, so cup number 4, so this is like the last part of the shot, we'd say that it didn't have very much body at all. Now, some of the other things we get in coffee, we'll just talk about taste. We won't really write up a whole heap of flavour notes or anything like that. But where is it sitting on your tongue at the moment, now that you've finished tasting it? Back. Kind of dry out your palate. This is what you're missing out on. It's beautifully bitter coffee. So that's generally, I guess most of us would taste bitterness kind of like at the back of our tongue. That's a tongue, by the way. So that's it. If you've got, after you've finished something, a drying sensation at the back of your mouth, or you've noticed it like while you're drinking it as well, that's bitterness. And I'd say that's probably the most noticeable flavour characteristic that we're getting off this at the moment, is a high level of bitterness. But some of the other things that we get from coffee would be sweetness. Now this actually isn't devoid of sweetness, it's just really, really low. So there's a little bit there, it's just overpowered and dominated by that. And then one other thing would be acidity. Would you guys say that this is a particularly bright cup? It's very, very dull. Yeah, and most of us would perceive acidity kind of just around the sides like that. And then sweetness is kind of like through the middle of the tongue, and we've got salty through the centre there. This is just a generalisation, everyone's tongue's a little bit different, but this is a good way of testing out a group of people. So we said that low acid, relatively low sweetness, high in bitterness, and not too much body. So what does that tell us about the very last part of the shot here? Do we want to put that on coffee? Not really. Probably not such a great idea. And if you ever see it looking that way, like really watery, really, really thin, most likely that's the result that we're putting in as well. Okay, so that's knocked off our little list there of things we like. So have a taste of this guy. This is the cross between when we had texture and when we had no texture. Grab a little bit of that, have a slurp, see what you think. This is an Indian coffee. It's fairly fresh crop. Eradicate. So Indian coffees are kind of like this in my experience in the past few years. Like not a whole heap of acidity. Like some, there's a little bit there, and you'll probably experience that a bit later. But just really balanced, like sweet, not overly bitter. You really have to work hard to get a whole heap of bitterness out of the cup. What do you guys think about that last bit? How did that compare to the first one?
Flavour, but that's
I think there's a bit more body as well.
Okay, so a little bit more body.
Yeah.
But what would you call it? Thick body. It's probably like edging to the bottom.
But the bitterness is probably just above. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, so just there. Yeah. So it's still got some bitterness, but there's not quite as much. What about this stuff? Where else is it sitting on your palate at the moment? Are you getting any sweetness from that as well? Really? Yeah. It's still relatively low. It's kind of sitting like maybe just under there, but it's definitely not a high level. And acidity, I'd probably say about the same. It's still pretty low. Absolutely. So this could be something to do with the extraction. It could be something to do with the coffee just not being overly acidic. So let's taste this next part. We've got 2 stages left. The first part, that real dark, drippy part, and then the colour change just here before it started to get thin at all. Have a little taste of that. What do you think? Was that different to the other ones? Yeah. What do you think was the biggest change there? Sweetness. Yeah, so it's much sweeter. Where would you say it is on here? Above the bars? Maybe there. Beautiful. Acidity was a little bit higher in that one. So that had some acidity. It wasn't like kind of like right in the middle there. So it wasn't super high in acidity, but definitely had a lot more than those first two cups. Bitterness. Do you guys get much bitterness from that?
I did taste a little bit.
Yeah. But there's still something there. It's like sitting on the back. It's not devoid of it. But it's definitely lower than these ones. Would you guys agree with that? Beautiful. And what about body? So body is kind of like a cross between how thick or how thin the liquid is and then the palate weight of it. So how much depth of flavour it has. So compared to these guys, yeah, it's definitely thicker, but it also has a lot more depth too. There's a lot more stuff going on there. Alright, beautiful. That leaves us with this last one. So the very first part of the shot. Maybe just get a little bit of this if you value.
So does because like this has been sitting here for a while now, you know when people say, oh, an espresso, you need to just drink it straight away. Does it change that much in the time that we've made it to now, the taste?
It does, yeah. Well, our perception of things change as they cool. So there's that. But then chlorogenic acid in coffee splits into quinic acid. It splits into caffeic acid. And that's just that reaction that creates 2 very bitter compounds in coffee. There's also little bits of coffee in there that are continuing to brew. So all those things together, it does change. It reduces in quality a little bit as it drops down.
So it is true to drink espresso pretty much.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
But if you mix it through with something, I think it stops that reaction from occurring. Probably not water, but with milk it preserves it a little bit. How was that in comparison to the other ones?
It actually tastes good, yeah. And I suppose it explains the best part,
OMG. I can't believe it. Sorry about, I was just like continually slanting out here by drawing, but you guys are following at least. So talk me through it. What was how are we going there with body? What's changed? really strong, really thick. Bitterness.
No.
So there's not really like any. There's a different quality to it. It's almost got like a sort of cocoa quality. I don't know. Is that how you spell cocoa? In that, it's kind of coating your whole tongue. I don't know.
I was just going to say, I've actually noticed it on all of my tongue.
Yeah. And it's almost like a silty sort of thing. It's not pleasant, not like grainy or anything. It's just
No.
nice and pleasant to coating. And there's a good reason for that. This first part of the shot is where we get all the non-dissolvables. So the things that just wash off the coffee, like oil, little bits of coffee grain, other things that don't break down into a water column, all come out in this very first part. You'll notice that these parts just here taste really different to this. That's because we've removed all of the non-dissolvables and we're just getting dissolvable solids. And that's things like caffeine, which is probably representative of some of that bitterness. It's some of the sugars, coffee as well, so sucrose. And then acidity, that's where we get the bulk of our acidity in that first extraction, that colour change just there. So what would you say about sweetness for this first one? High, low, medium? Yeah, okay, pretty sweet. And acidity for that one? Yeah, so it wasn't like as acidic as that. It was maybe like around the same, but strength-wise, obviously this is a lot stronger as well. So we can probably say the level is like somewhere between there. Beautiful. All right, so that's all the information that you guys just gave me. Let me just quickly draw it up for you in a graph, and then that should tell us a little bit more information about where we should potentially stop our shots. So I'm going to put this in order from like the start to the end of shot. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And at the sides here, I'll put the level of these different things. Okay, so let's start with body. So we said that body started really high, and body finished really low. So by the time we got here, that's what's going on there. And then that was more or less like as we're going along, like a straight line. So we can really safely say that from the start to the end, we lose body as we go. Bitterness is kind of like the opposite of that. So it actually starts really low. Change colour this. Bitterness starts really low, but it ended like super high. Just cross that over there. It's pretty representative of that. Sweetness was pretty similar to the way the body behaves. So it started off relatively sweet, relatively high. In this second stage here, it was also like relatively high, and then it dropped down kind of like this. So ding, and then finally with our acidity, just running out of colours here, it was more or less sort of medium at the start, and then it stayed that way, and then it very swiftly dropped off to be quite low. So acidity is kind of like this for this coffee. Right, so just looking at that graph, you'll probably notice that things intersect kind of around this area just here. And this is pretty telling for us. Like most of the time, what we ask people to do with their extractions is stop them when they start to look watery and thin, or let them run just a little bit longer. So that means you'll be stopping them kind of at the end of this shot, or letting it run somewhere into 2. And you'll notice that that's almost like the perfect intersection for all these things. That's where we get the best cup balance. And this is the next thing I'd like you guys to experiment with, is pulling your espressos to different points in this 4-cup and then tasting them. I don't want you to do the same thing that I just did and split it up into 4 shots. But what I do want you to do is produce 2 espressos. One that is really long. So take it all the way to the end of 4, just like the full range that I gave you there. And I want you to try and stop one that's right bang at the perfect spot. So right after it starts to look watery and thin, that's where you're going to cut it off. And then I want you to compare those. So take all your tasting cups with you back to your machine. Just between the 2 of you, if you're working with a partner, produce those 2 different coffees and then taste. Now remember, this time we're achieving that 21 grams exactly, and we're just going off how the shots look. You guys happy to work on that?
Yeah.
All right, no worries, jump on, go for it. I'll move this over there so you can change the reference if you want.